Welcome back yet another exciting C# web tutorial. We are nearing the end of the semester and there won't be many more of these. Alright, we're going to start working with a program you've probably spent a lot of time on, which was the grade calculator. But now we're writing it with methods. Let's not delay and get right down to business. We come in here and we have a button, calculate click. We declare the best data types we could use for this are bytes for the test grades and a float for the average. Now, in the past when we did our data validation, you will notice that we had blocks of code that repeated. I wrote a method called validate text box that I call. Let's go down and take a look at the code. It takes in a text box. Notice not the text. Not this, like we've been doing all along, but the actual text box. And we reference a byte test1. In this method, if you look here, it returns a Boolean. The name of it is validate to text box. It takes a text box in and it refers to directly in memory to the byte. By me putting the ref in here, it allows this method to modify this variable here. It's like giving permission for another piece of code to modify my variables, which are declared just in my own method. If you remember, if variables are declared within a method, another method, like the one up here, cannot see these variables unless we put the ref keyword on. Let's go down and take a look at this code. Text box in, text test1 goes in, and out, hopefully, comes the byte test1, and it returns back true or false if it worked. And here we call the same method, but notice I do negated logic, and I also write the code on one line. So I show you three different ways to call the same method. Notice the only differentiator between this call, and this call is I send in text test1 and a byte test1, text box text test2, and the byte test2, and a text box called text test3 and a byte test3. So I send the text box in and I return back out a value that's put into each of these three. Let's go down and take a look. So see how it returns true or false. It's private. Remember, you can have a method in 4 easy steps. Who can access it? What is a return? What is it called? And what does it take coming in? Notice this is an object, not a string, but a text box object that we call text in box to validate. Reference byte out test score. So in comes a text box, either text box 1, 2, or 3, and we have a reference or referral to in memory of the variable from the other method. Because remember, I want to share variables between methods. We could declare them as module level variables, not the best approach, or I can have the variables here and shared in memory by the ref. So I try parsing a byte. Now notice I do put the dot text here. I put the text box here, but I ask for the text box text. We've been using these try parsers for a while, and if it works, it will take what's in the text in this text box that's passed in and convert it. If it doesn't work, see the negated logic, we have a message box pop up, and because this is referring to either text box 1, 2, or 3, depending on what's called from up here, we can place our highlight everything and place our cursor and return false to here, which means it did not work. We return true if it was able to convert. By doing this code right here, I can have one routine to validate all my text boxes, and all I have to do is pass in the different text boxes. Now here I want to show you another shortcut that we can use. The math object has a method called min, and see, it takes one value in and another value and tells you what's the lower of the two and returns it back out. So what I did here, these go together, and I said find the lowest between 2 and 3 and then compare it to 1 and find the lowest and put it to here. Isn't that exciting? I didn't have to write any complicated if-else logic. This is like driving a standard. If I showed you how to use methods like an automatic, you wouldn't know how to drive a stick. Here I'm showing you Or in this assignment, I showed you how to code if-else statements. And now we can use methods to make our life easier. And look what I do here. If it's checked, I add 1, 2, and 3, and I back out the lowest, and I divide by 2, and there's float grade. If this is not checked, I average all 3. So check this code out. It's pretty cool. I use another method here. We've been using it all along. We take what's in the float, convert it to a string, format it as a number, no thousand separators, 1 decimal point, and put it into the text box. And here is another method called getLetterGrade. We give it a float, and we return back a text. So what does this method take, and what does it return? Well, if you hover here, you can see it takes a float, which we're passing it, and it returns a string. So a float in and a string out that we assign to the text box. Let's go look at this exciting code. In comes a float. We have a string. See? Only this project can access it. Remember the 4 easy steps? 1. 2, a string comes out. 3 is the name, and a float in. 1 float in. So we just have a bunch of if-else statements. Now let's run this. And it returns the letter grade here once it's determined what it is. Let's run it. Beautiful. We dropped the lowest grade. Wait a minute. See how it instantaneously recalculated? You may wonder how we did that. And if you said a method, you are correct. Let's go look at the code. What I did in the check drop lowest check change event is, instead of duplicating all this logic as you may have thought we wanted to do that was found in the button calculate, we can do something really cool. C# allows us to mimic a click event by using the perform click method. I have it already here. But go to the button and act like it was clicked, and that causes the code to be transferred to the button calculate click. Isn't that exciting? That way, this method allows me to share the code in one place. It comes up here and calls this. I hope you learned a lot with this.